Hi, I'm Simon, and welcome to Sports with Simon. And today's subject is going to be steroids in baseball. Was it better or was it worse for the game of baseball? We see the game developing. We see guys like Shohei and like Mookie Betts and guys like Aaron Judge and things like that. Especially like Aaron Judge. We wonder how 2 years ago he had 63 home runs in a season, most by a Yankee, second to or more than Roger Maris. We have no idea how a guy could do that, but you understand if you realize that he's 6'8", 270 pounds. But the real question is how did guys like in the 90s, like we see, like they made what was called the Balco list. And the Balco list was there was an athletic trainer and he was with the San Francisco Giants and he was the so-called athletic trainer that was giving Barry Bonds the steroids that he needed to be, kind of just one step ahead. And Barry Bonds, as we know, he holds the home run record in a single season with 73 home runs. Well, Barry Bonds, he's a big guy as is, but Barry Bonds, people believe that was used to his advantage. Secondly, we see is this game really tainted or is it something that good and we should try to bring back and things like that. So first, let's list some of the guys that were on the Balco list. So of course, it was Barry Bonds. Then, if you're from the Permian Basin, you know exactly who Randy Velarde is. Randy Velarde is on that list. Then, secondly, after that, you have guys like Gary Sheffield. You have guys like Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens, I'm not quite sure if he was on the Balco list, but Roger Clemens was for sure a performance enhanced user. And then after that, we see guys like, Sammy Sosa, who didn't quite admit it, but he denied it for so many years that it's like, how could you not admit to it, even though, you have nothing to lose. You're retired. You want to be recognized for still the credibility that you do have, as you still were a great player. And then Mark McGwire for sure. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the Long Gone Summer on 30 for 30, but that guy took his shirt off and you're like, dude, there's no wonder you weren't on steroids. Like, you're huge. You're massive. So next thing is we're going to see like exactly steroids are. So steroids are performance enhanced users. There's so many different kinds of steroids. There's gear. There's things like testosterone boosters, and it's like estrogen blockers. Like we're blocking the entire female hormone so we can just get bigger and just, say screw it and let's get huge. And secondly, we're going to see like, are they truly harmful? Like they do take a hit like on the immune system pretty bad. So kind of back to what I was saying is about what they are performance enhancers. So they allow you to grow using your hormones and using just overall testosterone boosters and pretty much just shooting all the male characteristics up and all your female characteristics down. So next thing we're gonna see is about that summer, with Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds. So Sammy Sosa had 66 home runs. Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. I can't remember how many home runs that Mark McGwire had that summer, but Sammy Sosa finished with 66. That's where people really started to notice baseball was really taking off. It was growing, it was getting bigger, and it was just an amazing summer, especially if you were like a young kid during those eras. After that, we're going to see when it was deemed illegal. So it was deemed illegal because, pretty much all along when baseball even started, it's kind of like a cheating mechanism that people used and didn't necessarily start thinking about using until those 90s and all of that. And once they started to use them, it was just kind of like, we'll go along with it for a little bit, and then if you get caught, then, you were kind of screwed. And then the punishment for that was suspension. It started out with 80 games. 80 games is the minimum suspension you can get. And we see guys in today's game still get caught to this day. The most recent would be Jurickson Profar, who had a really good season with San Diego. He was a former number one overall pick with the Texas Rangers, and then, he made his debut and everything, and he wasn't as good as he was supposed to be as a number one overall pick. He was kind of doing the worst of a number one overall pick in the last 10 years. And then he had a really good season last year, and then we see, next year he gets popped for steroids. Okay, so, we can't accredit that guy to it being an awesome season the year before if you're going to see things like he got caught with steroids. Next thing we're going to see is we can see the health consequences. So the health consequences of steroids are going to be pretty big. The biggest one is if you're a male and you even want kids in your life, dude, you can pretty much just kind of mess with that completely because your reproductive cells go out of the way. And also, like, hearing from like friends and stuff, because I played college baseball and a lot of my friends did steroids and stuff, hearing what they said about it and like the science that they learned about it, your testosterone levels increase, but once you get off of them, they never regulate to the normal they were before. So you drop to you soar to an all-time high, and then you drop, and then you never get back to that medium where you were. So that's the one thing you risk. And when the loss of testosterone comes, hair loss comes, you become more prone to injury after the fact. And those are the big things why I think it's wrong. Some people can argue that TV gets better when they are on steroids because they look bigger, they run faster, and they hit balls further. That can be true, but I don't really understand like the fact about like if you're a pitcher, how would that help you? Like I feel like if you're bigger as a pitcher, you're less mobile, you're not gonna throw as hard. So it's kind of a waste of time and a waste of effort. And then next is, where does it stand now with Major League Baseball? So Major League Baseball, as I said, they've really cracked down on it and make it like an 80-game suspension minimum. So that's the big area, but they do know probably that some guys still take them. So it's kind of like a pass-fail thing, I feel like now with certain guys. They just try to crack down on it. So they really test the guys that like Jerks and Profar, who had a really good year, things like that, are the guys that you can just look at and you're just like, yeah. Like you get veinier and things like that. You get also if there's just a difference in like personality, I'm sure you can check that way just by looking at somebody. You're probably like, yeah, that guy needs to be looked at. And the biggest takeaway that I can see is, should it be legalized? No, definitely not. I don't think it should be legalized, is because legalizing these would just be a harmful effect. We're putting these guys' lives in danger, not necessarily like life or death, but we're putting them in the fact of they're still humans too. They still have to go home to their wife and kids. They still have to do all of that. Once they're done, they're done. Like, they can defer money. They may never have to work a real job because they did something like a professional sport. But once they're done, like, they go back to being just a normal person, as they already are in the game. They're still a normal human being. But, so that's the one thing, is the harmful effects right there. So that's why it shouldn't be legalized. Now I get maybe like broadening the horizons and allowing like players to use more, like there's nothing against like creatine or anything like that, but less things that are going to be performance enhancers, but more things, like more ways that the guys can take care of themselves. Like in recent years, we see like Major League Baseball legalize marijuana. Like I don't see how that's a problem for those guys, because those guys are beating their body into the ground very, very hard. And they, it takes millions of dollars for them to stay healthy every year just to play this game. So I'm pretty sure like, they use it in the right way as a rehab device, and not just, getting stoned every day. And the second thing I would say is, fans want more, but baseball doesn't need to change. The game itself doesn't need to change. The way they can, want more is, let's advertise it more. Like they're doing things like the London series or the Tokyo series, or last year they went to Korea. The Cubs played in Korea against the Dodgers. Like those are really, really good things, because soccer is the largest sport in the world. So let's make baseball the second largest, because, anybody can play it. Baseball's a skill sport, not a strength, not a weakness sport, like golf, basketball, all of those, you have to have some strengths and some weaknesses. Baseball's more skill-based, there's no size difference. You got guys like Prince Fielder, his dad's Cecil Fielder. You got, skinny, scrawny guys like Tim Lincecum. Tim Lincecum was the fastest in and out of baseball we've ever seen. And so are these guys legends or cheaters? I view them as cheaters, in my personal opinion. But my personal opinion doesn't always matter to the other avid athlete watcher. But I just view that because, you got guys like in the other sports too, like, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, same kind of thing. Who's better? Who's worse? Who is the greatest of all time? And so we see that, and I think they're cheaters due to the fact that like guys like Aaron Judge, guys like Bryce Harper, guys like Kyle Schwarber, those guys, they're real athletes. They're huge, but they work for it, and they work hard for it. And these guys worked hard for it, but they had so many things that helped them. So many things that in the 90s that they didn't, that are overlooked now. And like, technology's advanced, everything's advanced. So if those guys are allowed in the Hall of Fame, then all of these guys today should be allowed in the Hall of Fame, just because they're probably better than the other guys, because they are natural. And that's about all I got to say today, bud. If this was interesting, we can continue and do some more, see how it goes.